Hello and welcome to Indus News with me, Osman Lone. Well, we begin this bulletin with our top story, and that's Syria, where President Erdogan has said that an operation is underway and 109 terrorists have been killed in northeastern Syria. Speaking in Ankara, Erdogan said the operation is not against the Kurdish people, but only against terrorist groups in the region. He threatened to give Syrian refugees in Turkey free passage to Europe if EU countries describe the operation as an occupation.
Hey European Union, pull yourself together. I say it again. If you try to label this operation as an invasion, it's very simple. We will open the gates and send 3.6 million refugees your way.
The United States has proposed sanctions against Turkey for its military action against Kurdish fighters in northeastern Syria. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen introduced the planned curbs. The proposed embargoes target US assets held by Turkey. They also suggest imposing visa restrictions on Turkey's leadership, including President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Senator Graham criticized the White House for refusing to act against Turkey, but Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the US did not encourage Turkey to launch the attack.
Yeah, well, that's just false. The United States didn't give Turkey a green light. We'll continue to be in a position to do what we need to do to keep the American people as safe as we possibly can.
Meanwhile, an urgent closed-door meeting of the United Nations Security Council has been called today over Turkey's military action in northeast Syria. The UK, France and Germany requested the meeting after Turkey launched its military offensive. The international community has expressed concern over Ankara's actions. European capitals have criticized the Turkish offensive, warning it could lead to an ISIS resurgence. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte says the operation risks destabilizing the region and harming civilians. The Arab League has also called an emergency meeting over the development on Saturday. In a statement, Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry said the operation is a threat to regional security. The UAE has called the offensive unacceptable aggression against the sovereignty of an Arab state. Well, for more on this, we have Yusuf Erim, who's our Istanbul-based analyst. Yusuf, welcome to Indus News. So give us your assessment on the situation and the latest on Operation Peace Spring.
Frankly, these proposed U.S. sanctions are absolutely absurd, and the reactions coming out of the European Union and various countries who remained relatively silent in Syria, who have been very inactive in Syria, all of a sudden becoming very vocal when Turkey wants to undertake a counterterrorism operation to shore up its own national security is a very counterproductive and very hypocritical. These countries should have been more active in Syria over the last decade, but we're seeing countries like Italy, we're seeing countries like France, Germany, all of a sudden choosing to become very, very vocal when Turkey wants to proactively secure an area on its border, cleanse it from terror, a terror organization that emanates a threat directly inside of Turkey's borders, and also rebuild this region to repatriate 1 million Syrian refugees, which is an important part of normalization supporting a political solution process. Now, when we're looking at the latest, what's going on in Syria, we're seeing Turkish forces shelling across the border, especially in the Tal Abyad, Rasul Ain area. These are important areas where there's YPG fortifications. We're seeing the Air Force going 30 kilometers deep, dropping their payload and precision strikes predetermined with reconnaissance during the joint patrol period with the United States. We're also seeing Turkish howitzers softening up the area. We can probably expect a much bigger infantry incursion in the upcoming days once these fortifications and YPG terrorists have been softened and properly shaped for a ground operation.
Yusuf, thank you for the analysis, and I believe you're right. Turkey's been waiting a long time to go into this particular area, and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said we're trying to repatriate the 2 million Syrian refugees currently living inside Turkey. Europe doesn't want them, so he's trying to find a place for them. But what do you think about the statement about they're saying that there might be an ISIS resurgence in the area because of this operation?
I think that's absurd as well, because there's no reason for an ISIS resurgence. Now, Turkey's willing to take the responsibility. President Erdogan has given President Trump assurances that Turkey will take over the duty of defeating ISIS and take over the duty of repressing any type of ISIS revival. Operation Euphrates Shield in 2016 and the governance behind that area, including Al-Bab, Jarablus, and Azaz, the way Turkey has governed these former ISIS strongholds, we've never seen any type of ISIS revival in that area, is a strong testament to the way Turkey can help govern, train local Syrian forces for police, or whether it be for as FSA members to serve militarily, allow local councils to rule, provide education and health services. This is all. These past actions show what Turkey could do in the future for northeast Syria as well.
Yusuf Eram, thank you for joining us here on Indus. That was Yusuf Eram, our Istanbul-based analyst. Now, in our other top story, in London, police have charged self-exiled Pakistani politician Altaf Hussain with a terrorism offence over a hate speech he delivered in August 2016. He's the founder of a banned political party called the Muttahida Qawmi Movement. Hussain is now in custody and will appear at the Westminster Magistrates Court later on today. He was also arrested 4 months ago as part of an investigation into alleged instances of hate speech. Hussain is facing a number of criminal cases in Pakistan and he's been declared as an absconder by the courts. The MQM disassociated itself from Hussain in 2016 due to his incendiary statements against Pakistan. Well, for more on this, we're joined by our guest, and I want to ask him the first question. The founder of the Muttahida Qawmi Movement, Altaf Hussain, has been charged by Scotland Yard in incitement speech inquiry for intentionally encouraging or assisting offences. What are the details?
That is the charge, yes. The Metropolitan Police have announced that 66-year-old Altaf Hussain has indeed been charged with a terrorism offence. In terms of the detail that we have received from the Metropolitan Police, this is a terrorism offence, according to the Metropolitan Police, in connection with a speech made in August 2016. The detail from the Metropolitan Police goes on to say that on the 22nd of August 2016, a speech was published to crowds gathered in Karachi, and the charge suggests that these were words that were likely to be understood by some or all of the members of the public to whom they were published as a direct or indirect encouragement to them to the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism. And at the time he published them, the charge goes on, intended them to be so encouraged or was reckless as to whether they would be so encouraged. And the police say that this is a charge under Section 1(2) of the Terrorism Act of 2006. The charge is broadly described as encouraging terrorism. So that is the detail that we have from the police with what Altaf Hussain has now been charged with, having initially been arrested by police here in London back in June.
Ollie, so tell us, has Altaf Hussain been charged with a non-bailable offence because he was granted bail earlier after his arrest in June this year?
The charge that Altaf Hussain has been accused of is the charge that I have just told you. There is nothing beyond that from the Metropolitan Police at this time. In terms of what happens next, the Metropolitan Police saying that Altaf Hussain will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today. That is likely to be largely a procedural hearing at which the charges will be read to him, and we will then have further dates for the hearings for the case to continue through the London court system. So we will likely by the end of today UK time have a little bit more of a sense about when next Altaf Hussain may appear in court. But that is the charge that has been levelled now here in the UK, and what that means is that the Crown Prosecution Service believes that they have had enough evidence presented to them by UK police for that charge to be levelled against Altaf Hussain. As I say, he was initially arrested back in June, but this charge has now been laid down by police here in London today.
So, Ollie, can he be granted bail now, even if there are terrorism charges against him?
That's very hard to speculate about. That will be something for the court to decide later on. As I say, this is likely to be a short procedural hearing in front of a magistrate at Westminster Magistrates Court. This is a court at which some of the most high-profile initial hearings are heard in cases like this. As I say, likely to be a short procedural hearing. The charges will be read out. Altaf Hussain may be given a brief opportunity, or his legal team may be to respond to them, but there won't be a huge amount of discussion or legal argument in this hearing at Westminster Magistrates Court. But the judge may well have to make a decision at this point about whether Altaf Hussain can be bailed or whether he will remain in custody. We are told by police that Altaf Hussain will appear in court in custody.
Thanks, Ollie. That was Ollie Barrett, our correspondent based in London, giving us the latest on former MQM leader Altaf Hussain being arrested on hate speech crimes. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan will visit Saudi Arabia and Iran to defuse tensions in the Middle East. Last month, US President Donald Trump asked the Prime Minister to reconcile differences between both countries. In a press brief, the Foreign Office spokesperson Mohammed Faisal said the tour could happen without giving a time frame. Speaking on occupied Kashmir, Faisal said New Delhi has been violating human rights in Indian-occupied Kashmir since the 5th of August. He added that Beijing backs Islamabad's stance on occupied Kashmir. Discussing the Kartarpur Corridor initiative, Faisal said Pakistan has officially invited former Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh for the inauguration ceremony. While staying with Kashmir and condemning New Delhi's illegal annexation of occupied Kashmir, 132 students and teachers have written to the Indian government. In a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they protested against India's human rights violations. The letter read 8 million people of the valley have been under lockdown now for over 2 months. Mentioning the communications blackout, they said such a move is simply unacceptable and should be seen as an ominous sign for India. The letter also makes a case against detentions, shortage of food and health facilities, and violent attacks on students. The Indian-imposed clampdown and communications blackout has entered its 67th day in the valley. Well, we'll be back with more news from around the world right after this short break. Hello and welcome back. Now, Twitter says it will no longer unilaterally suspend or terminate verified Pakistani user accounts. Pakistani National Information Technology Board CEO Shababat Ali Shah says the microblogging site made an agreement with Islamabad. In a tweet, he said the deal was reached after Islamabad shared its concerns over unreasonable suspensions. Shah said an understanding was developed following a conference call with the company's policy officials in the UAE. Over 300 accounts have been suspended for tweeting in support of occupied Kashmir since the 5th of August. Now, in a ceasefire violation along the line of control, a Pakistani soldier has been killed in unprovoked firing by Indian forces. Pakistan's military says 2 women have also been wounded by the cross-border gunfire at Baro and Chirikot. In a statement, the military's media wing, the Inter-Services Public Relations, said troops targeted Indian Army posts in response. It also said there are reports of casualties among the Indian military after Islamabad's strong response across the border. Tensions between Pakistan and India escalated after New Delhi illegally annexed occupied Kashmir on the 5th of August. Well, today is being marked around the globe as Mental Health Day, with a special focus on suicide prevention. The World Health Organization says mental health disorders account for 90% of all suicides. More in this report.
Anxiety and depression lead to a suicide every 40 seconds. The rate is projected to double by next year. Psychiatrist Dr. Shehryar Govenda says mental illness is now the leading issue affecting daily life.
Among children, teenagers and adults, depression and anxiety is increasing. A lot of people think that among children, depression doesn't take place. Long ago, this was a concept, but now that's not true.
While most see suicide as a violent behavior, Dr. Aisha disagrees.
Suicide is not a choice, it's a disease. Let's stop the stigma of mental illness and being progressive in uplifting the well-being and self-esteem of not only of others, but ourselves as well.
Societal taboos attached to treating the problem continues to be the biggest roadblock in healing psychological disorders.
There's a lot of stigma attached to mental health problems and psychological problems, and people think that if someone is going through anxiety, tension, depression, they must be mad. Actually, that's not true.
In developing countries, even the acceptance of mental health issues as an ailment is rare. Support from family and friends is crucial to help the patient.
We must recognize and accept our responsibility to help ourselves, help our dear ones, and people at community level by giving unconditional positive regard, acceptance.
Traditionally, elderly males have been the most vulnerable to such disorders. However, recently, anxiety, stress, and depression has been climbing amongst young people.
The 5th China Helicopter Expo has just opened in Tianjin. The event offers rotograph industry professionals their chance to show their skills. The Aviation Industry Corporation of China says the 4-day event will run from October 10th to the 13th. The show offers a business-to-business platform with strategic and dynamic demonstrations as well as conferences. The expo is expected to attract aviation professionals from China and around the world. Now, in business news, the credit rating agency Moody's has slashed its economic growth forecast for India for the second time in 3 months. Moody's Investors Service predicted India's GDP drop in the current fiscal year from its earlier forecast of 6.2%. The ratings agency lowered India's growth forecast from 6.8% in August. This means Moody's has reduced its growth forecast for India by 1% over the last 3 months. In a note, Moody's said compared to 2 years ago, the prospects for India sustaining GDP growth of 8% has significantly diminished. According to the central bank, India's growth fell to a 6-year low of 5% in the April-June quarter. Well, it's 28 degrees here in Lahore, but let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, that's all from me and the team here in Lahore, but we'll be back at the top of the hour with the headlines. Thank you for watching and bye-bye.